Greetings and welcome to this short video presentation on how we go about creating a virtual private network on Windows Server 2012. I'm currently logged on to my Windows Server 2012 virtual install. Server Manager is up and running, and we're going to begin by going to Manage and clicking on Add Roles and Features. I'm going to accept the default selection for me here of role-based, feature-based installation, and I'm going to click Next. Now I'm going to select the server that I currently have present inside of my Server Manager, and we click Next. And from the list of available roles, we're going to check the box next to Remote Access and click Next. And we're going to accept the defaults here. Click Next. On this next window here, you can read all about remote access, direct access, VPN, and web application proxies. And I'm going to click Next. And now I need to check the box for direct access and VPN. Now I'm going to go ahead and add the features. And now I'm going to click Next. And I'm going to say Next and accept the defaults here for the role services and click Next. And finally, I'm going to click Install. Once the installation has completed, I'm going to go ahead and close the wizard. That brings us back to our Server Manager. Now up inside of Server Manager, you'll see we have the yellow triangle warning or informational message telling us that there's something that we need to do. If I click on this, I can click and open the Getting Started wizard, and I'm going to go ahead and launch that. So I'm now going to move the window over just a little bit, and underneath my options here, I'm going to select Deploy VPN Only. This opens up the Routing and Remote Access MMC, or Microsoft Management Console. I'm now going to click on the name of my server, and I'm going to right click, and I'm going to select Configure and Enable Routing and Remote Access. This launches the Routing and Remote Access Server Setup wizard, and on this first screen I'm just going to select Next. And down here at the bottom, I'm going to select Custom Configuration, and I'm going to select Next. On this next window, I'm going to select the box for VPN access and say Next. And that completes the Routing and Remote Access Server Setup wizard. Click Finish on that. Now we have to start the service. Service is about to start. We can now close the Routing and Remote Access Management Console. We now need to enable remote access for each individual user that is going to be using this VPN. So we're going to go up to Tools, and we're going to open up Active Directory Users and Computers. Over in the left Windows pane, just go ahead and expand the Users container, and at the top you'll find the Administrator. Just go ahead and right click, select Properties. From the User's Properties, we're going to select the Dial In tab, and we're going to select we're now going to open up the Dial In tab, and we're going to select Allow Access and No Callback. And we're now going to say Apply, say OK, and that configures this user and allows them to have VPN access. We can now close Active Directory Users and Computers. Brings us back to the desktop. I'm now going to hit my Windows key plus R to bring up the run line. And in the run line, I'm going to type in WF. I'm now going to open my desktop, go up here to the search, and I'm going to type in WF, and I'm going to select Windows Firewall and Advanced Security. From the left Windows pane, I'm going to click on Inbound Rules, and I'm going to scroll down till I come to Routing and Remote Access. Underneath the firewall rules, underneath Routing and Remote Access, I need to ensure that Routing and Remote Access, GRE-N, is enabled. Routing and Remote Access Layer 2 Tunneling Protocol -N is also enabled. Routing and Remote Access PPTP-N is also enabled, and Secure Socket Tunneling Protocol SSTP is enabled. Once we have confirmed that the proper inbound rules are enabled, we can go ahead and close out the Windows Firewall with Advanced Security. And now we're going to move over to our Windows 7 Pro machine to test our VPN. So I've logged on to my Windows 7 client, and now we're going to go ahead and test the VPN. First thing we have to do is create a VPN connection from this computer. So I'm going to go over here to my taskbar to the right, find my network icon, right click and open Network and Sharing Center. Now in this next window, I'm going to scroll to the bottom of the left window pane and open up the Windows Firewall. On the next page, I'm going to select Advanced Settings, and on the next page, I'm going to select Inbound Rules. I'm going to scroll on down until I come to Routing and Remote Access PPTP-N. I'm going to highlight that rule, and I'm going to make sure that it is enabled. Right now it's enabled because it has a green check mark, but if it wasn't, this disable rule over here on the right Windows pane would say Enable Rule. Go ahead and close this out. I'm now going to go back to the Network and Sharing Center by scrolling to the bottom of the Windows Firewall and selecting that option. On this next window here, I'm going to set up a new connection or a network. And now I'm going to connect to a workplace. Say Next. And I'm going to use my internet connection. And I'm now going to set up the connection at a later date. So I'll select the option here for I'll set up my internet connection later. In this next window here, I have to type in the IP address for the server. Make sure you type this in right the first time, so make sure you confirm that you actually do know the address for your server 2012. I'm going to type this in. Okay, on the next window here, we're going to type in our username, administrator, and I'm going to type in my administrator password. I can type in the domain if I so desire, but it's optional. You don't really need it. I'm going to go ahead and say create. Now on this next window here where it tells me I have to have an internet connection, just go ahead and ignore that and say close. Now you can go over here to your network connection, and you'll notice that you now have a VPN connection waiting for you to enable. So I'm going to go ahead and double click this. Now I'm going to type in my password and my domain, and I'll go ahead and save that for later on. And now I'm going to go ahead and say connect. It's going to go over and bang away at my server. It's going to confirm my username and password, and then it's going to register the network. Now if I go up and I look at my connection here, it will tell me that I am connected. So here's my caveat about this lab. This lab is something that we normally wouldn't perform on the internal network. Normally that IP address that we typed in would be the outside IP address of my firewall. My firewall would have a rule and a static mapping that would transfer your request for a VPN to the network over to the VPN server, which in this case would be the server 2012. Now, once that rule was established, then you would be able to connect. So what I'm telling you is if you was from a hotel, or you were from your house, or from anywhere in the world, if you had the outside IP address, and if you had the rule for the firewall set up correctly, that is to say, a real firewall, a Cisco ASA 5500 series, and you had a static mapping pointing to your request for PPTP over to the server with the right IP address for the server, then everything would probably work. Now, my other caveat is this. Routing and remote access inside of a Windows server is considered the poor man's router. It's not something we'd actually do in the real world, First off, this is a really serious type of a security hole because it's a software router. You're running a router and a VPN connection on top of your operating system, on top of a server that is running on your network. And that's never a good thing, all right? Because once I get access into the routing and remote access of that server, well, I've just taken over the whole server, and now my next step is to take over your network. So this routing and remote access, it's not something we actually do. It's just something that Microsoft thinks that everybody should do. And this has been around for a long time. Okay? Routing and remote access has been around for a long time. Fun to play with, but it's nothing that we're seriously going to consider when we want to implement routing and remote access on our internal network. Okay, that's it for this lab, and I will see you in my next video.